but we got our guy Don McPherson who joins us every Thursday. And let's bring in Don right now, Orange legend on the 315 every Thursday. And Don, last Thursday, I know we haven't talked to you since, and we got to talk about the game a little bit, I guess, unfortunately. That was one of the weirder games I think any of us have ever seen, the way it started against Pittsburgh, and especially with how good Kyle McCord has been this year, to come out and have the issues in terms of the pick sixes right away. What do you take away from a game like that? Is it just as simple as the ball didn't bounce the Orange's way, like Fran Brown said, and we can chalk that one up to just a fluky, weird one in Pittsburgh?
Well, Tim, first of all, it's good to join you on this Halloween afternoon, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you sort of introed, the discussion about the last game. It was 9 days ago. It was 8 days ago. It's been a long time. It's almost like, they came off the bye week, had a loss to Stanford. They come off a bye week, lose to Pitt. Now you have another what could feel like a bye week because you sat around all weekend and watched a lot of college football over the weekend, Friday, and then full slate on Saturday. It feels like a long time since that game, and that makes all the mistakes and all the missteps of that game just sort of sink in just a little bit more. Don't have a chance to get back on the horse, as they say. And I think, Fran Brown's going to give it the best spin because that's his job, to give it the best spin, get in the locker room and get everybody, as my old coach would say, love them up and get them back on track. But the reality is it was a very ugly first half. And the kind of performance that sometimes, like I said, psychologically can sit and fester with you a little bit. It wasn't just a bad first half. 3 pick sixes is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
To leave a guy in that long, then he could be that, make those many errors. I think is something, like I said, it's going to sit with them for a while now if they have such a long wait for the next game.
Yeah, talking to Kyle this week, I think the clock is moving a little slow for him. He's ready for Saturday to get here and get another crack. And, I would expect him to bounce back. Obviously, he's not going to put together a performance like that. I think we're comfortable saying that based on how he was playing through the first 6 games of the season as well. The idea, and you mentioned that they kept him in the game for a long time there, and the fan base was quick to talk about that. Why is he in the game up until pretty much the very end of the game? They didn't use another quarterback in that one at Pittsburgh. As a former QB, and I'm sure you've had games, probably not to that degree, but games where you get off to a slow start or you're trying to fight through some things. Do you think Kyle was fine with being out there, or what was your take on leaving Kyle McCord in there and Fran Brown never really giving up on that one in Pittsburgh?
I think there's 2 different kinds of players. One that in his head he's saying, just give me the ball again. Just give me the ball again. I'm going to throw it. I'm going to let it fly. I'm not even going to think about the last one. You have guys who have a short memory. And then you have guys who are thinkers, who think, you know what, maybe let me step back from this for a minute. Maybe I don't have it today. I get the sense that Kyle McCord is probably somewhere on the side of just give me the ball and let me go again. But I think it's on Fran Brown to say, hey, kid, you don't have it today. I got to sit you down. It reminds me of a great quote with Casey Stengel and Yogi Berra and gave up a couple of runs on 4 pitches, and Casey Stengel says, does Whitey Ford have it today? And Yogi Berra says, I don't know, I haven't caught one pitch, right? It's just sometimes it's up to the maybe even the players around him to say, hey, he's not seeing it right now. I've been in a situation, I had a game where I threw 4 interceptions. It happens to be one of the most memorable games in the Dome.
Right.
Was the last game we played. But the only reason I stayed in the game was because it was the last game of the season, and we were undefeated, and I should have been pulled from that game. And that should have been Coach Mack's call, and he talked about it later. He's like, listen, we got this far. We're going to sink with them, or we're going to swim with them. And I think I would have taken them out earlier in the game and give them a chance to see the game from a different perspective, calm down, let the guys around them calm down a bit.
You're saying like second half or just after the 3rd pick, take him out then and say it's not his night?
After the 3rd pick, I would have said, hey, it's not your night. And because the other thing that happens, Tim, is it's not just his confidence. All of a sudden, guys start shortening their routes. They start doing things to kind of compensate. thinking that they've got to change their game to help out the quarterback. And so you want to give the whole team that confidence, that chance to take a breather and say, okay, things that have worked for us in the past are not working right now. We're going to make a change. Doesn't mean it's a permanent change. We're just going to make a change and sort of reset for that ball game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people pointed to that moment after the third pick where Fran grabs Kyle and sort of puts his hands right around his helmet and practically was hugging him on the sideline, knowing that this is just not his night at that time. That was highlighted as, look, this is a head coach showing support for his guy. And I guess that's the counter argument to all of this is Kyle McCord comes from Ohio State. Coaching staff was mixed reviews on him. He comes to Syracuse, and what's he been saying? I've been playing with freedom. The coaching staff has given me the keys to the offense. They have been hyping him up all year long. So, some of it is Fran probably thinking, I got to show support to my guy. But that's a tough line to balance, right, in a big game like that on the road.
It's not just a tough line to balance. All the points you just made. The other piece of this, and you kind of alluded to it when you talked about where he came from in Ohio State. Around college football, and I just saw a headline about teams starting to gel with all the transfers. And I talked about this not having a preseason. Earlier in the season, you don't know what your coaches are going to be like. I always talk about the first time I was on headset with Coach George DeLeon, who was a raving lunatic during practice. But in games, he was so calm. It was like talking to Mr. Rogers on headset. So you didn't know what kind of guy you got until you got into the heat of it. Well, we didn't know, and Fran Brown didn't know what it's going to look like in Kyle McCord's eyes when he's having just an absolute dreadful evening, right? And so that was the first time that they had to look into each other's eyes to see, hey, what kind of guy are you now when you're getting kicked? What kind of guy are you now when you everything you've done is just not working tonight? And that was the first time, that scene I recall as well, of Frank getting in his eyes and looking in his eyes and talking to him. The difference is you just don't know because you haven't been in that situation what it looks like in the guy's eyes when things are just not going right. Yeah,
and Kyle's a guy that is not used to losing, period, let alone losing to that degree. He's done a whole lot of winning to this point in his career, which is a testament to him a little bit, but he's been in great programs. In Ohio State, he lost one game, and it was the game, and that's why he transferred in a way. But I'm sure it was rattling for him. Jen with Don McPherson, as we get you ready for Syracuse, Virginia Tech on Saturday. How much of McCord's struggles, Don, do you think was on Kyle, and how much of it was just Pittsburgh was throwing out different looks, different coverages than what the Orange have seen to this point in the season?
Well, each interception has its own story, right? The receiver ran the wrong route. The quarterback. The first one, I thought he stared him down, and the first pick six, though he stared him down, and the other ones kind of were coverage disguises, and I think he's going to go back and he's going to look at the tape and he's going to realize what mistake was made on each one of those, and then you burn the tape. You just kind of move on and forget about the mistakes that were made, and I think that's going to be the key for them this week is to not worry about what caused those interceptions, what caused those big plays, negative plays on offense, and just burn the tape, move on. Virginia Tech week, focus on the Hokies.
Don, we've got a couple of people in our chat asking about Kyle and kind of his NFL prospects. Not the best game to talk about NFL prospects, but he's been so good throughout this season, and it's just been one bad game to this point. When you watch him as a quarterback, and he is that true pocket passer type of quarterback, do you see him as maybe having a look at getting a chance at an NFL roster, potentially getting drafted one day?
Without question. I think for just arm strength and his quarterback savvy alone, he's an NFL prospect. And you're right. We're here mid-season, and I saw earlier this week that a couple of players, including Kyle, were invited already to the East-West Shrine game, and we're always jumping ahead in college football. We're talking Heisman in June and July, and it's always jumping ahead. And the tough thing for Kyle, and I said this about watching games. This is a lot of good quarterback play this year. And I'm a voter for the Davey O'Brien Award, and Davey O'Brien does that great 8. And I think this might be the first week, if not 1 or 2 weeks, where Kyle wasn't mentioned in the Davey O'Brien hunt. And there's a lot of good quarterback play out there. There's a lot of good guys playing at a very high level, throwing the ball really well, and in a variety of different types offensive styles. But without question, Kyle McCord has the quarterback savvy, the leadership skills, certainly the arm strength and accuracy to be an NFL quarterback. I definitely think he'll get a strong look.
Yeah, say what you want about the ACC. There's some good quarterbacks in the conference this year. Cam Ward, of course, the Orange we'll see at the end of the year out of Miami, and Kyron Drones this week. Virginia Tech has had a little bit of an iffy year, but in general, he was picked as one of the top quarterbacks going into the year. In terms of this Virginia Tech game this week, and now the team's trying to flush Pittsburgh and turn their attention to VT, how big of a game is this for you, Don? Because I look at this, and it does kind of feel like a fork in the road type of moment. If you could come back home, you could get a win and sort of prove that Pittsburgh was a fluke, you're almost sort of back on track. You've got bowl eligibility. Not that that's the goal this team has, but it'd be nice to get to that 6th win and kind of have the rest of the season in more of a positive light.
Yeah, I think it's a big win, big game for a number of reasons. One, what we already talked about, which was the dreadful performance on Thursday night. Again, the national audience, they had the national audience and did not look good. So there's that. There's the 9 days that they have to wait for game number 2 or get back on the field. And then to your point, they've got to get back on track in the conference to be in the conference hunt. They've got to get back on track to put that game behind them. And then the schedule, Boston College is tough. I think Cal is the worst team in the country.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They played some really strong. They held Pitt scoreless in the second half of that game. They played Miami really tough. So the schedule, other than UConn, is pretty tough going down the road. So they've got to have come out in this performance. And Virginia Tech's a tough team to come back off the road and have the kind of game that they had against Pitt. A tough team to come to because Virginia Tech is the number 3 defense in the conference, and they have the sack leader in the conference. And so they're a tough defense. That's going to be the challenge for the Syracuse offense to get back on track.
Yeah, Pittsburgh known for getting after the quarterback. That panned out. Virginia Tech can really rush the passer as well. They're top 10 in the nation in sacks per game. I'm with you on the Cal game, too. Just the nature of the travel for that one is going to make it tough. When you look at this schedule, and I know a lot of fans are out there thinking, this might be another one of those Novembers where PTSD kicks in, and here we go again. It's not like every game's tough, but there's a lot of those toss-up games that they've had to this point, and they've won their fair share of those, and we'll see how it goes from here. But are you confident that maybe this November it's going to be a little bit different this time around, considering what Fran Brown has brought in from a talent perspective, and maybe fans shouldn't quite hit the panic button compared to other years?
Well, that's the thing about the panic button this year across the board in college football because of transfers, because you have so many new faces. I said, September was preseason for a lot of schools, a lot of teams, because they're just getting to know one another. A tough October on the road for Syracuse, and now just one home game before you go out to Boston College, a really good Boston College team, a really good Cal team, I think, that you have to go out there. So I wouldn't push the panic button just yet. I think they can bounce back against Virginia Tech, get some confidence, and then get ready for what's going to be a very tough November.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Don, we always appreciate you hopping on here, and happy Halloween to you. I hope you get some trick-or-treating, get some candy in your Halloween night here, but thanks for hopping on for a little bit to talk Cuse football.
My pleasure, Tim. You too. Have a good one.